ding 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 ding. Right. All right, yeah. So this is my review of the Mortal Kombat movie. I made a few notes to make sure I ain't missed nothing, but basically, if you don't know, this is like a multi-venture into Mortal Kombat itself. So, for example, a lot of people may not remember, if you go YouTube it, it was an excellent, cool re-envisioning of Mortal Kombat, right? So, there was Mortal Kombat Rebirth that had like a crime thriller kind of genre thing to it. Really? Sorry, my cat's licking a spoon. It's her food I used for her food. So, it had this crime thriller thing, like it made Reptile more like a eater and Baraka was more like a crazy dude. It was a really cool concept that had Michael Jai White. Hey! Trying to do a video over here. Done. Thank you. Sorry. Michael Jai White was there. It had 7 of 9. It was a really cool video, which in turn, enough buzz went around on it. I think it was like 2010 that led to Mortal Kombat Legacy, I think that's called. Mortal Kombat Legacy, I think it's, yeah, Legacy, that's what it's called. That was in 2011, the following year. That had some really good stuff and some okay stuff. I do want to own them. I like the thing with Shang Tsung. You could watch them online, but I want to own them. I thought they were really cool. Overall, I thought way more of it was good than bad, and it was a great retelling of Mortal Kombat. Some of it was a little choppy because of just where it was. Like, they did this interesting but yet kind of weird story about Raiden. So it was a good reimagining, but it wasn't fully Mortal Kombat, but it was on the right path kind of thing. Then you have it, which I wanted to dig it out, but I couldn't because all my tapes are like stacked and I have to go through all of them. They're like stacked in boxes. When I have my house one day, like I always say, then I will have an area where there's tapes that I just won't get rid of. Mortal Kombat The Journey Begins came out like I think the year of Mortal Kombat, and it was really, really cool. It was like a CG fight, but it was like a lot of game stuff, a lot of information, but then they would tell you these really cool stories. So you got to see Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, but in a very traditional way. But the CG, I mean, we were like, oh, it's so great. If you look at CG now, you'll be like, ugh. But hey, I loved it. I still own it. It's just put away right now. There was Mortal Kombat Conquest, which I think had a season. I actually have a couple of those on tape, but I do want to get the complete series because I know they came out with it on DVD or whatever. And it changed some of the lore, but that's the first time you get to see a live-action Noob Saibot. That was an excellent, really cool episode. They kind of used his stuff to be more like an oil thing. So that was awesome. You got to see some cool powers. It came out, I think, after the first movie. But then when Annihilation came out, it kind of fizzled. Yeah, no, I think it was after Annihilation because it was like 98, 97, 98, or 98, 99. And also with that, that was the first time you ever see Christina Loken. But I actually personally liked Conquest. I thought it was really cool. It was after Kung Lao won the tournament and the journey that he went through to work his way to the next tournament. Which, I mean, it ended it. I think they wanted to go further, but if you know the story, the next tournament they won, and that was the start of Outworld winning. Then you also had, which I know a lot of people don't remember, Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, the old cartoon show with my favorite Sub-Zero, who has the scar. That is not the brother, but even though I love the character, I love the character of Sub-Zero. So I saw that Jeremy Johns did it. I saw someone else did their review. They had theirs earlier. I watched mine yesterday and finished it today. I was so busy. It was like I had to keep going back and people kept interrupting me. I'm trying to watch it. I'm getting phone calls about different stuff. So I wanted to do my word flex and to show you how much I love Mortal Kombat. So a friend of mine bought this controller for me years ago. This is a PlayStation 2 controller. And yes, I still have a working PlayStation 2. It's a platinum one. Yeah. Um, Now, this isn't recent. A little dusty. I want to do my weird flex. So, this has Mortal Kombat. You could open a thing. Now, this, I never actually opened it. The reason why that flap is open is because the tape literally pretty much fell out. But if you look... Now, I have quite a few PlayStation 2 controllers, and this is the Mortal Kombat Fatality controller. It's bigger. It's a midway one. My friend bought it for me years ago because I love Sub-Zero. And if you can see, this even came off. There's like nothing left of that. I think this is from MK3? MK4? Maybe? Either way, I was like, I'm never going to open this. And he was like, dude, open it. I'm like, I'm never going to open this. I have other Mortal Kombat stuff. I'm never going to open it. Or I have other controllers. I'm never going to open it. I'm going to always have it just there looking beautiful in its package. But literally the tape pretty much disintegrated. That's why the one flap is open. I wore it Anatomy Park because Mortal Kombat Anatomy. I'm wearing yellow to give love to Scorpion. It's not that he's my favorite character or anything. I knew since I was going to flex with Sub-Zero, that's my weird flex, that I just was like, you know what? Let me give Scorpion a little love. But no, like, I hands down love Sub-Zero. And in time, now that's enough of that intro, we have Mortal Kombat 2021. So, right off the bat, I need to establish something that had me going. They definitely went a different approach, even from that the last cartoon movie that came out. This reminds me a little bit of like Deadly Alliance and Mortal Kombat Annihilation feel, where there's a lot of treachery and stuff. This isn't the actual tournament. This is how they started to have to gather the Earthrealm people to get to that tournament. That doesn't mean it doesn't have action stuff. It's just this is a very different approach from any other Mortal Kombat they've ever done. This is like a prequel to the Mortal Kombat tournament itself that we all know and love, which hopefully they call the next film, if they decide to do another film, Mortal Kombat something. Right off, they did this very different approach than they have done with any other Mortal Kombat. Usually every Mortal Kombat, Scorpion's Revenge, all those things usually start with the tournament. Now, as we know, in Mortal Kombat 1, Liu Kang is the official winner of the tournament, but Scorpion is the most popular character of the game, so he kind of took over the game series. So they kind of worked their way through it, especially from the first film, where they did the crazy thing with Sub-Zero and Scorpion, which was interesting. I didn't mind how they did it, but I liked how they did this. So with this different approach, you get a showcase of different characters, and you follow this character, Cole, who is an original character, and they kind of take it from there to give you kind of eyes into this world, sort of. And if this was a really long movie, I would say that this is like the first act into the second act, if that makes sense. So that's where this is. Like, this is a good setup. Like, this is like the beginning of it. If it's a trilogy, this is Act 1. I could definitely see this being a trilogy, possibly. Maybe more. I don't know. But I could easily see how this could be a trilogy if they do it right. If not, they don't have to. They actually could do 1 and 2, and it actually would work as well. Do have a tournament-esque kind of thing in it, but you'll see what I mean. It's not the Mortal Kombat tournament. So it's like this particular thing, and I do apologize if there's spoilers. I'm really going to try not to spoil much, but that's something I think they should have been a little bit more upfront with, because I was a little thrown by that. But this is a setup. It's kind of a showcase. You get to see how some stuff are, but the rules are kind of thrown out the window. Like, I was actually a little surprised in this that Raiden didn't do more, but the way they handled them, I kind of saw. I was like, oh, I get y'all flow. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I kind of get the flow of what they're doing here. But it was kind of a little different, where Raiden was very hands-off, where the other one, he was kind of like, hands-on, and yeah, you know, your guys. This one was very hands-off. I do remember that in some of the games, they like explain that Raiden's supposed to be hands off, even though he does fight in the tournaments and stuff. They do kind of explain and play with that a little bit about Raiden's supposed to be kind of hands off with everything. Now, the Scorpion Sub-Zero situation is very, very cool. Um, I'm going to give you a heads up now, just so you don't get your hopes up if you haven't watched this yet. Scorpion is not all over this movie. They picked the perfect actor for it. It works. He's there enough that I'm like, okay, we got some Scorpion up in here. But don't expect Scorpion to be the character. And I think they did that because people love that rivalry between Scorpion and Sub-Zero's clans, the Shinryu and the Lin Kuei, so much that it might have dominated the film. Like it did in the cartoon movie, they very specifically did the Scorpion story because they knew that to draw in, but this was a little different, yet it still revolved around that story, but it didn't focus on that story, which I thought was a good approach to it. Scorpion is really cool in that movie, and especially how they do him. But if you want death, blood, gore, fatalities, brutalities, you're gonna have a lovely time. It's up in there. They do not hold back. It's very violent. Things pop off. It's gritty. It's visceral. And I think the next movie they're going to take it even further. But this one was a start, and you really did get to see some cool stuff. So now on to some of the characters. I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. My boy, now he's not my favorite. Actually, Sub-Zero's brother is actually my favorite Mortal Kombat character. But when I played the original Mortal Kombat games, Sub-Zero was my favorite. One, I just think he was cool and I like the ice powers. Two, he was the easiest character to use when I was a kid. You could really use his ice powers a lot. It was very simplistic, and then I ended up just really getting into the character. I did, and I owned, but my brother accidentally lost the disc. I did own MK Mythologies with Sub-Zero. I don't know if I found it and still have it, but I did own it. I did play it. I enjoyed it because it was Sub-Zero with Quan Chi, and then they had the story of how Quan Chi manipulated Sub-Zero and all that stuff, and I thought that was really, really cool, and how Sub-Zero had to do stuff. Well, in this Sub-Zero, it's Bi-Han, right? He is a literal monster. Oh man, after all these years of dealing with all these years of Ed Boon, every trailer murdering my boy Sub-Zero, because he loves seeing Sub-Zero get killed with Scorpion. There's even these bookends where it literally shows Scorpion throwing his thing, but then on the other side it shows Sub-Zero getting stabbed with it, and then the further you have the books, it looks like he's popping through the walls. Now, how Scorpion made that his weapon, the rope joint, that was really cool, and I like that they put some story behind that, and where it comes from. I thought that was a really nice touch for what he does, and they acknowledged him as one of the greatest ninjas to ever live, while he's Japanese. The Shinryu is Japanese and the Lin Kuei is Chinese, so I thought that was a really cool thing, because a lot of times, depending on what story you follow, they might play them up in the Outworld and be like, oh, we're actually Outworlders. But it seems like maybe they utilized Outworld to become immortal, I guess. I'm just, spitballing there. But Sub-Zero was no joke. He was a monster in this movie, and I loved it. I was like, yes. Because my favorite, like I said, is his brother, the one with the scar on his eye when Scorpion went after him. But I loved the original Sub-Zero too. And it was so cool. He walks in, he's just, and it's yo. And this dude was a beast. He was a jerk. He was a prick, and it was great. And it was when he fights people or he does something, it's nope, ice. I was like, yes, Mortal Kombat! I was like, yes. It was he was not to be trifled with. He was not somebody to be handled. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. When I see my boy Sub-Zero, he needs to be wrecking shop. And he was wrecking shop. He was literally a movie monster. He was the boogeyman. Even when they were talking about dealing with some of the other characters, like, nah, when we fight Sub-Zero, we gotta do a little something different with him. We can't mess with Sub-Zero the same way. And I was like, that's right. So, it's definitely appreciative of that. Okay? Kano was awesome. To be honest with you, I think this movie would not have been as good if Kano wasn't in it. It was a really fun time, but Kano really brought the thunder. He was just a jerk. And he was like... and it was great because Kano just... And from what I heard the actor actually... and he's an actor from House of Lies, from Superstore. He's always played a different part. He's a comedic actor, but in this... I was like, wow, he really shined in a different way. But I heard that they let him just ad-lib a lot of his lines, and he was a jerk. Like, the dude's like, stay there. He's like, yeah, because I'm going to go for a freaking walk while he's chained up. And how you get into the tournament and stuff. And Kato was just such a jerk, and it was like he got excited for like goofy stuff, and it was hilarious. When they had their big fight with a certain type of character that I'm not going to say who, but you'll know when you see it and how they depicted it, and I thought that was really cool, because you can always bring that character, that type of character back. But like Kano was like vicious, he had his knife, and just how he spoke and the whole thing. He's like, it's a beauty, hey, like his Australian accent. I was like, yo, they picked a great guy to play Kano, and even when he like lines he was saying, like there's a, like I said, not trying to spoil it, but there is a situation where they're at the table, and he just goes off because he wants an egg roll. And the stuff he says, he's like, he said that, you know, he's like, sit the F down and give me the egg roll. And it just was going, man. And it was awesome. Like, Kano was a great addition. He was funny. He carries you through the movie. So the movie, literally without him, I honestly think would have been down a little more. And it was fine. Like, I was actually okay with that. I was like, okay, you guys knew what Kano was here for. Kano was to get you the, yeah, like that. All right. When the movie felt like it was going slow, Kano would change the game. So Kano was awesome. It'd bring his A and B game. The fight scenes went from super crazy to some were just cool. But I think this was a smart approach. And the reason why I think this was a smart approach was because when a fight got more intense, that's when you felt the severity of what was going on. So it wasn't like the whole thing was just like, yeah. It was like where it was like, yeah, every fight, it's just no, some fights were vicious. Some fights were like, I'm just better than you. Bye. And it was like, okay. And it does happen in the game. Because if you think about it, sometimes in the game, you might be dominating, just talking about something, gotcha, bam, done, bam, done, over. So it was a nice dichotomy of ups to downs and what they had to deal with. And the Outworld felt like a real threat. There was another character, well, I'll get to that. But there was a good amount of fan service throughout the film. There was little hints, little tidbits that you as a fan would know. However, Cole, the character, his ability was kind of interesting, but it was a little weird to me. But I was like, okay. But how they did it, which you'll see how he uses his weapons and what he fights and how he does. Cole was a very straightforward story. He was just a guy who knew how to, who was a fighter, pretty much. But he wasn't dynamic. But it's funny, because as I say this, I don't mean that in a full insulting kind of way. Because I think that was the point. So, Cole felt like a creative character. Like, in Mortal Kombat, sometimes you can make your creative character and their story is very generic. It felt like Cole was a creative character. And they built up on him with a new character, but he wasn't like a standout dynamic. But that's what made him so surprising. That's what I felt like they were kind of going for. And like I said, Cole has a connection to the story that when you see it, it's like, I see. But Cole, he was a good, like, some people might go, he was boring. No, I think he was a good character. I just don't think he was like a character you're going to be like, yes, I got to have more Cole. I think it was a setup to who he was going to become. I think we could use more of him. I think towards the end you saw some of his personality come out, and I think they kind of need to build on that. They need to make him more, if that makes sense. Like, I think this was a good place to start him, but I felt like his daughter had more personality than him. So they kind of need to do more with that. But it's a start, and I'm not hating. So, now you have Liu Kang and Kung Lao. They're trying to help Cole, but it's Liu Kang and Kung Lao, and Liu Kang, especially being the winner of the tournament, how strong he was, and he has his look. They made Liu Kang and Kung Lao more like a teacher role, and it was kind of also more like they were background characters. They're like, we gotta have Liu Kang because there's definitely a Liu Kang fan base. We gotta have Kung Lao because there's definitely a Kung Lao fan base. And they're important characters, especially because they were the two leading characters for the live-action TV show, the original Conquest. You know, he's the descendant, and Liu Kang in the movie. So it felt like if they didn't have them, it wouldn't have worked. But it did feel like they were a little bit more background. Now, Liu Kang is in that place he was in the first film where he kind of was unsure, but he is sure. So it worked in this movie, but it felt a little dry. Like I wanted him to take it a little further with his character. Kung Lao, I actually thought Kung Lao was all right. Like Liu Kang showed more as things progressed, and I think we're going to see more of him too. Like I feel like there's going to be more coming. With Kung Lao was very interesting because he does have a drive. Like now, Liu Kang, as usual, I'll put it to you like this: Liu Kang in the original film has a similar drive to wanting to fight by the end by the tournament. He has a similar reason to want to fight in the tournament, just like in the first film. That way, if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Like I said, maybe a light spoiler, but that's the best way I can put it. But it's not the way you're thinking, because Liu Kang is already there to fight. So, but there's a driving factor that pushes him a step further. So, see, it's still a little confusing to you. I wanted to keep it that way. But if you get it, you get it. Jax and Sonya, I thought were good. It felt like they were like, remember them in Annihilation? Now, I know y'all gonna punch me. I actually like Jack and Sonya in Annihilation. I enjoyed them as characters. I know. For some reason, I enjoyed Jax, but they did the reverse where Jax had the robot arms, and they kind of did it in the other movie. This one, how they did Jax's stuff was interesting because it wasn't those super robot arms like that yet. It was another thing, but the way they let it out, I was like, that's actually a really cool way. It was a cool way how they did it. It get a lot of some definitely legacy characters, but I feel like they needed a little more to those legacy characters. Like, I felt like they could have used a little bit more love. Not all of them. Some of them, they got actually a pretty good amount of love. Some of them, you didn't need much more. They kind of worked and they were there, and they're there to be there. So that's that. I'm not telling you all the characters in the movie because I was surprised by some of the characters, so I want you to be surprised. But some of the characters I felt were fine, and some was like, okay. Jax had, like, for example, there's a dude in there, when you know who he is. I'll just give you the hint. He has a hammer. He grunted and growled. Now, was it a little bit of a punch to the gut because he was there and that's all he did? Sort of, if you're really into that character, but I think the character's purpose, he's obscure enough to the general public. He was more of we could throw him away. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it felt like. And even for me, that character is not that important. But I do know some people, it's like, I'm like, I don't really care about him. So I get it, but I felt like they needed some throwaway characters, and this was the easy way to do that. Jack's Wreck Shop. But I think this was a setup to build more. So I think this film was definitely something where it was like to let loose and to build, right? So this was a good setup, honestly, in my opinion, but the next one, they got to push it a little further, and I think they are. I think they're doing this to test it, to kind of get to that next level. There are little references in the movies, like, for example, there's a thing with Kano, he goes, is that the only move you know? Now, you know there's people who have spammed certain moves, uppercuts and sweeps and stuff, and they kind of reference that. So they reference a lot of little game things that if you played Mortal Kombat for a while, that's one of those, why do you keep doing the same move? Like the people who were playing with Sub-Zero, or Scorpion, and they would just keep throwing some like the or so they would just keep ice, and it was annoying. Like I used to spam the clone a lot, even when I didn't need to. For Sub-Zero, but that's because I just really liked it. But even I got away from that. It's just annoying. So they definitely did a lot of little references. If you played Mortal Kombat a long time, you will know, you will pick up on a lot of it. That was some fan service for the fans, but I think for other people it would just be funny. A character that I actually love, which is weird that sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're good. I was very excited to see that character was in, I think, Annihilation, if I remember correctly, but I kind of forgot. I think that, I think the character was. But in this, it really worked, and I was very happy about it, and I found it hilarious. And because it was just cool to see this character. I'll just put it to you like this. The character's fast. If you get it, you get it. You don't, you don't. But that's one of my favorite characters that I really liked their story in Mortal Kombat. So when you see it, you see it. Now, on to Mileena and her mouth. Now, if you think she was supposed to have the thing right away, no, it looks very similar to what you see. However, there was something there with Mileena. Now remember, in some of the games when Mileena takes off her mask, that's when you see the teeth coming out and the cheeks, and she has the big mouth. They did something like that, but different in this. But I think for the movie, it actually worked. Because once you've seen what happened and how she got that, I was like, oh, okay. So I actually think it worked for what they did. The race swap, I don't understand it, but besides that, I thought Mileena worked very well for what they were trying to accomplish. Goro looked very nice. I thought it was a good place to take Goro. It definitely, they did a lot of work. Very enjoyable. I liked how Goro was, how they explained things, how these magical creatures could fight people, how the people could fight them. And Goro was a beast, and I thought that was cool. Shang Tsung and Raiden. Keep checking out their eyes. Shang Tsung, when he uses his magic, his eyes would change. And I thought that was cool. And sometimes his voice would change. And he was like a multi-thing. It was the dude, the Squaler from Batman The Dark Knight. It was that guy. And what they did, I actually thought was really cool with that actor. And how Shang Tsung felt like a really threat. And him and Raiden didn't have that same respect like they did in the first one. He was like, Lord Raiden. You remember in the first one. In this one, there was no respect. And it was crazy because he was like, we're going to take y'all out. We're tired of this crap. We're tired of this tournament. And it definitely did remind me of Defenders of the Realm, where it wasn't about the Mortal Kombat tournament. It was like now Outworld kept trying to break the rules, so the Defenders of the Realm had to protect the Earth. And that was a really interesting take. Like I said, he has other enemies, and he was like, I have more, and stuff like that. So I think through this movie, because there's so many characters, there are some deaths you'll be like, oh wow, they killed that character? Okay. Didn't expect that. They killed that character? Okay. And it just stuff happened, so the stakes were there. But what's smart is Mortal Kombat has so many characters now that they could go through. I mean, what are they up to? 11, 12 games? Maybe, you got MK Mythology, some side games, maybe 14? There's hundreds of characters. So they have a lot of characters they can just pull from. If let's say they wanted to do 3 movies, or even 6 movies, they have characters. They have that storyline with the time thing they can do to bring back certain characters. They have a lot to work with. And, I would love to have 6 movies. But if they only had 3, cool. You have 3 here, 3 there, cool. I'm down. Good. Now, there is an explanation when they talk about the birthmark. Kind of to imitate, it felt like they played up. Remember Annihilation? They had the pass, and it was like you only got the pass for this. Well, it seems like the movies always want to do something with those marks. So this one, the mark means something, and how the mark can work actually was very interesting. But also too, how people have their abilities in this and where they can take their abilities is different. There's an explanation. And it's kind of interesting because you can see when a person fights a character like Sub-Zero, like a me fighting him, versus when someone is supposed to be a chosen fighter. It's like there's something there, how their abilities come, how they learn them, and what they are, and how they're unique to each fighter. It actually is a story plot, and I thought it was a really well done idea. And I was just I kind of like that idea. That way it would explain it, and you don't have to go into, well, why does Sonya have the ring thing, and why does this character have fire, and why does this character fart? It's this is why this thing does this, and this is what happens. simple, and it's a very cover all kind of explanation, but it works. And with the superpowers and stuff, and you see how they have a lot of control. Like Liu Kang actually has a lot of control over his fire powers. It's not just a soul fire. The dragon is like, I have this. It's like the new games or whatever. My rating for this is a good time. I actually liked it more than what I'm giving a rating for, but to be fair with everything, I think it would be a good time. Leaning towards a should buy. I mean, I'm going to buy it, but I think it was a good time. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, you might love it. You might be like, I want more lore. I want y'all to dig into that more. Or you might like the gore, which then you'll probably really like this. But the movie itself, I think if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, you will enjoy it. It's better than Annihilation. This is coming from someone who actually has a guilty pleasure of Annihilation. Yeah, when I watch Annihilation, it's not because I love that movie. It's because I enjoy some of the ridiculousness of that movie. Especially the scene where Shang Tsung whoa, turns to the Hydra. My animality. And there's some character references and quick things you see. So you guys tell me what you think of the Mortal Kombat movie. You've probably seen it by now on HBO Max or in the theaters. Tell me if you really, really liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, to me, my rating is, it's a good time. I think you'll enjoy it. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, even if it's not the best movie ever, I think you will just enjoy it. You'll get it like, you'll be like, you know what? But I had a good time watching it. So that's why I'm giving it a good time. Because I think you'll be like, I had a good time watching it. I watched a Mortal Kombat movie. It's definitely one of the better video game movies. Just to keep protagonist, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real. Mortal Kombat! Sub-Zero, a little backstory, and I'll see you.